Everyone. Sorry for the few minutes delay. Welcome everyone to this interesting meeting today. My name is Dr. Erilanan, and I am a consultant psychiatrist working in the NHS in Bradford. We have been doing this for the last few years, and I welcome you all to this excellent talks from different speakers today. The reason we started having these meetings are a few. First of all, even though being doctors and but graduated in India, we found the whole system very difficult as a parent, when we were trying to help our son to get into a medical uni. And we thought maybe other people might have the same reasons, and hence we started sharing information. And our objectives of this event and also the medical training is to share the knowledge we have amongst ourselves. We want to inspire and be a role model to others. And we also wanted to encourage entrepreneurship among students. Some of the students, they are more interested in teaching, and we wanted to give them like a stage to exhibit their teaching talent. Our motto is to spread positivity by being grateful for whatever we do. And we always believe the greatest happiness is the service to others. Our voluntary team consists of senior doctors. Some of them are in a medical director cadre and have been in top positions. Also, we have medical students, and most of them who have been through our system, they came as students, benefited, and they wanted to give back to the community, and hence they have come back as examiners. We also have a WhatsApp group through which we share information. And we have started a website where we are going to put in all the information so that it doesn't get lost, especially people who join the group late, and we don't want to be very repetitive. We have also published a book with some of our speakers, which is available on Amazon. We also plan to produce books on UCAT, which is quite an important component for the exam process. Today, we have an interesting mixture of 12 speakers who will be talking very briefly on different aspects of getting into a medical school. Following that, we will have a question and answer session, and we are hoping to finish within 90 minutes. A general information is, you don't have to be very specific about a particular medical school, even though, you might have your own preference. But at the end of the day, a doctor is a doctor wherever you graduate from. And it's not the university alone, it's what you get out of it, how you earn, how you learn, and then what you do after you graduate from it. As you all know, even though we are talking about medicine alone is not the only career. Every career is equally good, but today we are going to concentrate on the positives of medical career and details about it. We also wanted to continue this in future. And please note that the ideas and thoughts expressed by our speakers are their own. And please verify or clarify with resources if you want to assimilate it. Please post your comments whilst we are having this meeting in the chat box. And when we have time at the end, we will try to answer them. So once again, welcome you all to this meeting. And before we go on to the first speaker, as we all know, we are in a national mourning following the death of our Queen. So I kindly request everyone to observe a minute's silence before we start with the first speaker. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll now start our day with our first speaker, which is who is going to be Dr. Raghuraman. Dr. Raghuraman graduated in 1989 and has been a consultant anesthetist since 2002. He is currently an acting medical director at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Kingsley, Norfolk, and he has helped numerous people to get their first step on the NHS ladder. Over to you, Dr. Raghuraman. I understand he's been called for an emergency operation, and hence he can't come on the video, but he'll be able to talk to you briefly about why a career in medicine. Over to you, Raghu.
Thank you, Elil, and welcome all for yet another interesting session on the Medical University interview practice. This is probably my fourth time that I am addressing you all, and I wish you all the best in your career. And the first question when you ask yourself, why do you want to become a doctor? I think that I've heard several responses to this question. And I went on to ask myself, why did I become a doctor? Variety of reasons, but purely my parents wanted me to. But when I joined this, and I've been a doctor since '89, I have not regretted one moment of it. Purely because the pleasure and the happiness that one gets in healing people and the satisfaction of curing people, not only keeping them well, but also helping them through their ailing period, gives immense satisfaction to one's career. And that is one of the primary reasons that must drive anybody to take this profession. And if you have that drive in you, I think you should be able to deliver all the other things that you want out of this profession into your career. I think if you deliver safe, effective, affordable care, which is what I live my values on, I think that is one thing that will always give you the ability to deliver a healthcare to meet the needs of the population. And one of the things that we are in dire needs of within NHS is the need to manage the backlog, especially after the COVID. COVID has taught us a lot of things. And one of the things is that we have to, this is cost us a complete holocaust in the healthcare sector, purely because we stopped everything to manage COVID during the last first and the second wave of pandemic. And it has now becoming an endemic within the healthcare burdens of the NHS, but equally, we could not accommodate all the other patients during this period, and they are causing us a significant pressure on delivering the healthcare needs. We need more doctors, but equally, we need doctors who are committed to this effort of curing people and keeping them well in the community. And NHS needs more of you guys, highly motivated and highly intelligent to deliver this service in the most effective way. So I think the future is bright for medicine. The future is right for medicine, and future is in your hands, dealing this care to not only to me in my future, hopefully, and also to many of the people who you're going to serve in your community after your graduation. I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you on the other end when you graduate and join us in NHS serving your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raghu. We go on to our next speaker, Dr. Senthil Kumar Mahalingam, who is a consultant psychiatrist at Derbyshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. He is quite an inspiring doctor who's been shortlisted by the Royal College of Psychiatrists as a Psychiatrist of the Year in 2018. He's also clinical supervisor and a medical educator. He has numerous trainees, and he specializes in drug and alcohol psychiatry. He also teaches as a MRC Psych, which is a membership of the Royal College of Psychiatric course, and he has been a Royal College committee member in his region. Over to you, Senthil, to talk about the admission journey.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Like Dr. Raghuram said, and Dr. Errol said, as a doctor, when I was looking for the medical process for my son, who's in Newcastle now, I went through a lot of panic, and therefore I joined Errol and Co. Just to share our experiences. So by this time, most of you would have been familiar with the universities and college admission services, which is where you apply for the necessary universities of your choice. Like Errol said, there is no good or bad universities. Remember, all universities are GMC approved. So please keep in mind that MBBS from any university is as good as MBBS in any other universities. So some universities, I'll go through in detail. You need to have certain subjects in the GCSE, and so certain universities wanted you to have particular grades like A star, A, B, or 987. Some universities, what they want is they will assign marks to the A star or A or B or 987, depending upon what subject is. Or some universities like Nottingham, they allocate marks to your GCSE levels or to your individual UCAT score. Like, for example, they double the verbal reasoning and add and they put a total. Or some universities just go for the UCAT score or the BMAT score as needed. So A level, there is a common misperception that you need to have biology, but chemistry is the most crucial thing. But also, as you start going into the AS level, it might be useful to start looking at what universities are looking for and what are the subjects. And you can choose a wide variety of subjects, but the crucial subjects generally will be chemistry. Depending upon the universities, some may expect 2 science subjects. So you need to look at what universities you are wanting to go. So then the other thing is the offer rating. So certain universities want, like, for example, A star, and A. Some may want A star, AA. Some may want AAA, or some, if you have, like Sheffield, if you have an EPQ A or A star, then they offer AAB. But so the important thing, what you need to remember is, how would you maximize your chance of, the first thing is getting the university interview offer. So if you get 4 out of 4, that is perfectly fantastic, which means you can go for the 2. So the strategic application will be talked by my Aditya, who's coming later. So you need to be very mindful of how you maximize your offer for the university. Some universities accept research, so you need to go to individual university websites to look at it. And then there is a contextual offer, which is basically for widening access from the poor socioeconomic area. So, and you can look at whether you would qualify for the contextual offer. So then some universities offer intercalation, like some it's mandatory, some it's optional, like you can have a break it for a year, and then you can do something related subjects. That is, so instead of 5 years, you may be doing 6 years. Work experience, a lot of people would prefer to do healthcare, like health education or virtual. It's not possible for everybody, so there are other options. The easiest one, if you want to go into healthcare, is if you know a friendly doctor, he or she might be able to accommodate you. Or every region, for example, I'm in East Midlands, so our health education is called Health Education East Midlands. You can directly apply to the Health Education East Midlands, but they have a particular age cutoff for you to go to certain areas. So that's one of the barriers. But otherwise, you can do volunteerings in care homes. Like there are a lot of old age care homes. There are other care homes which you can go. St. John's Ambulance, charities. Remember, it doesn't matter what you do. The important thing is in your personal statement or the roles and responsibilities document for certain universities, what you learn from it and how you going to implement it. Some universities say, like, I can't remember where, even if you work in a coffee shop, you need good communication skills to talk to your customers. So you just can say, I learned the communication skills. And also there may be irate customers when the coffee that you gave was the wrong type than what they ordered. So how you manage, so that's managing conflicts. So every work experience is an opportunity. And the other important thing you can also consider is Duke of Edinburgh Awards. So we are mainly, generally, the UCAT is the one, and there is BMAT. So different universities do different. Oxbridge, one of my other medical student colleague is going to talk about it. So for that, you need to take BMAT. So UCAT is University Clinical Aptitude Test, and you can do it in any date. So there are 4 areas: verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, and abstract reasoning. And then the score is between 300 to 900. And then the other 5th component is the situational judgment test. Some of the universities don't take a SJT of 4. So you need to also look at it. If, for example, you scored SJT 2, you need to look at which universities are okay with that. And the banding for is 1 to 4. So the BMAT is biomedical admissions test, and it's a specific date in the required year if you're going for Oxford or Cambridge. So it generally looks into thinking skills, scientific knowledge and applications, and the writing task. So personal statement, the important thing is, like I said, what you learned from what you have done. That's what the universities would expect. Some use it to score, some use it to differentiate between candidates, and it can be sometimes discussed in the interview, depending upon certain universities. So university choices is always, if you are doing medicine, the maximum you can opt for is 4, and then 5th one should be a separate, different field. But the personal statement is the same for all 5, and there's a deadline for submission, and you have to, don't wait for the last day, because there may be a crash of the website and you may have issues. So always submit in advance and go through multiple drafts of your personal statement, because it's a very crucial document. So it's almost like if you're going to fly to elsewhere, you don't go just like that. You make lots of preparation. You need to do more than that, because it's your life skill. So the personal statement is very important. And the interview format, a lot of universities do what is called as multiple mini interviews. Certain universities then do what is called as panel, where there'll be 2 or 3 members asking you questions in a group setting. So the other thing you need to consider is how the applicant per place. If you're a UK graduate or you're non-UK, then you need to look at what is the offer given to applicants per place in the interview and then subsequent offer, and what are their selection process look like. And there are certain universities where it says gateway to medicine, which means they are potential to be doctors, but not likely to attain the standard entry requirements. There is another thing called medicine with a preliminary year, which is 6 years, where the candidate have attained high A-level grades, but did not take the relevant science subjects for medicine for that particular university. So that is another option. Or a graduate entry, where one of my other colleagues is going to talk about graduate entry. So thank you and good luck for all the candidates. How do I stop the sharing?
Okay, thank you, Senthil. Thanks for your introductory talk about the admission process. We go on to our next speaker, Dr. Kumar Marimuthu, who is a GP with special interest in mental health. He's been a GP along with his wife in the Yorkshire region for quite a few years. He's also a keen badminton player and a trekker. I understand he was brave enough to walk with his wife to the Everest base camp recently. He has been an informal mentor to pre-medical student applicants since 2005. And thanks for joining, Kumar. He's on a holiday to Malaysia, but he's joining us from KL. Over to you, Kumar.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Elil, for the introduction, and welcome to everyone who have joined us in this seminar. I realize that we have got very limited time, so as you can see from the headings which I've highlighted, there's very specific points which I want to mention in this presentation. It's not my intention to duplicate what Dr. Senthil Kumar has already said, who has given a very comprehensive account of the admission process. So I'd like to start off by putting up this slide, which was an article recently in The Guardian. And the reason I'm putting this is not in any way to be negative, but to create some awareness that the application to medical school has changed over the years. Sadly, it's become more competitive, and there are a few reasons to this. One is, of course, the backflow from the A-level fiasco during the pandemic. And I think, interestingly, there are more people, actually, contrary to what our beliefs are, there are more people applying to go into medical school. But having said that, if you do have a reasonable strategy, I don't think so it is impossible. And I'll just like to just share these statistics. If you could see, this is the UK admission to medical school over the last 5 years. And if you can see the numbers, total applicants in 2016 were only about 20,000, whereas in the last 2021, it was 28,000. So that's a 8,000 increase in numbers of people applying into medicine. And this chart here tells you about the number of people who have sat for the UCAT exam, which is one of the admission tests to apply for medicine. And again, if you could see, in 2018, you had 27,000 people sit for it. And in 2021, you got about 10,000 people extra. So these are quite obvious evidence that there is increasing competitiveness. But as other speakers will further highlight, if you have a good strategy, success is not a problem. So that's really all I wanted to say about the fact that medicine has become more competitive. An awareness that has become competitive is important for you to apply strategically so that you are successful. So I'll finish off with that about the recent application trends, and I'll move on to something which the previous speakers already touched upon. It's about work placements. Now, I think I get a lot of students asking me, Doctor, how many placements should I do? Now, it's not about how many you should do, it's how good a quality of work placement you do. And that's quite important. If you can undertake all your reflections for qualities of a good doctor in one single placement, that's all you need. So you don't need to go and do many, but if you do one and you do it properly, that's all you need. And I think this was again previously raised by the previous speaker about it doesn't necessarily have to be a healthcare post, though it may be preferable, but you could be a waiter in a pub. And this is really the key here, is to bring across what we call as transferable skills. Meaning, if you are a good communicator, you deal with people in a restaurant or a pub well, you can bring that skill onto you when you become a doctor. So that is really what you need to show and reflect in your personal statement or in your MMIs when you're being tested on these points. So I just also want to make it something I want you all to be quite create some awareness on that area. It's quality or quantity, really. Yeah. And just my last penultimate slide is about a bit about the MMIs. Now, the vast majority of universities are still doing MMIs, which stands for multiple mini interviews. It is a good way, it's a very objective way to test candidates. And it picks up usually looking into very specific points or certain qualities in the candidates who are coming. So I will show you the qualities in my next slide, but I just want to mention a few things which we look out for in a candidate who comes for an MMI. We like speakers who have balanced ideas, who are not rigid, people who are analytical thinkers, people who look at things in a broad approach. If you think you have not done well in one MMI station, forget about it. You've got another 8 more to cover up. So don't get upset. Keep moving on. So that's the other point I wanted to say. Of course, as always, they say don't appear rehearsed. Try and speak. Don't look into any papers. Try and look up to the examiner. Good eye contact, good body language. And again, I put here, don't rattle on. Think before you talk, and answer the questions which the examiners asked you, because the worst thing you can do is to deviate, and that will certainly put the examiners off. So these are little points, but they are quite important. And of course, the last thing I mentioned is about virtual MMIs. Because of the pandemic, obviously a lot of things have been done virtually, but I suspect things are going to change soon, back to the good old face-to-face MMIs. So yeah, so that's a bit on MMIs. And finally, now I mentioned about the qualities, and these are actually the qualities we are looking out for in you. And this is what each station of the MMI station is looking out for you. So you've got to reflect on how have you communicated, your insight, reflection, your personal organization skills, problem solving, how do you deal with uncertainty, resilience. So there are many more, teamwork, leadership. So these are the things you've got to try and put as a template on how you will be talking if you asked a question. So that's it really from me, and I wish all of you best of luck, and I'm sure you will all succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar. Thanks for the useful practical tips you gave, especially regarding work placement. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we were planning to live stream this event on YouTube, but due to some technical difficulties, we are unable to do it. I know more than 50 people are waiting on the waiting room. What we plan to do is we are recording this session, so we will upload this on the WhatsApp group by 10 p.m. tonight. Apologies for that. If you have any queries, please contact our admin Priya on 07958 913329. I repeat, 0795 891339. Please keep posting your questions on the chat box, and we will try to either answer them in this session, which we hope to finish by 4:45. If not, we will try to answer it on the WhatsApp group. So we now go on to our next speaker, Abhirami. Some of us might not be able to get into the medical school immediately after your A-levels, or some people might not want to think about it and rejoin later. So there is always a postgraduate route, which Abhirami is going to talk about. She's a pharmacy graduate at Keele University, and she's due to enter medical school as a postgraduate student next year. Over to you, Abhirami.
Hi, everyone. Just let my slides come up. Fab. So if you just go to the next slide. Fab. Yep, so just a bit about me then. So I'm a Keele University graduate, achieving a first-class honours in my pharmacy degree. I'm currently working at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in London as a trainee pharmacist, and will be hopefully starting medicine at Keele University next year in 2023. So if you just go to the next slide, please. Next, can you go to the next slide, please?
On the next slide, has it not come up?
No, not yet.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. Apologies for this.
Yeah, fab, thank you. So the main difference basically between a postgraduate and applying as an A-level student is that you're seen as a mature student. So you're no longer that 17-year-old anymore. And you really, the interviewer isn't expecting you to talk about Duke of Edinburgh or expecting you to say you shadowed a doctor on his ward round. What you really need to show is your maturity that you've developed during university and your undergraduate degree. And this kind of links into the second point I've said. You will develop and learn a lot of new skills during university. And what you're really required to do in applying as a graduate is to reflect on these skills that you've acquired and developed. And this is not only in your personal statement, but in your interview. And you need to really make sure that you stand out from everyone. And what I mean by skills is you will learn communication skills, interpersonal skills, talking to patients, talking to students. You may even be, a team leader of a sports club. So it doesn't have to, you don't necessarily have to do a clinical undergraduate degree. Myself, I did pharmacy, so it did help that I was talking to patients quite often. So I developed all these communication skills, which I then highlighted in my interview and personal statement. But really what you have to do is reflect on all these skills and almost kind of show them off that you have acquired these skills and how they are relevant to a career in medicine and as a doctor. And that will really make you stand out in your interview. Coming on to my next point, your motivation for medicine. So you've probably already done a 3 or 4 year degree, and then you are now coming to hopefully do another 4 or 5 year degree. So your examiners really want to see what is your motivation for medicine. So what has motivated you? Why are you determined? How are you going to get through the 4 or 5 years and then carry on to do your foundation years? So you really need to show them, especially in your interview, what is your motivation and what work experience and knowledge have you gained for you to carry on this degree, a career in medicine and to get through the university degree. So you really need to highlight your motivation, I think, which is really important. In terms of admission tests, I think the common ones that people know when you apply as a A-level student is the UCAT and the BMAT. Sometimes applying as a postgraduate, you will have different admission tests. So I know for a few universities, the GAMSAT's required. So I definitely say do not assume the admission tests are the same. I would check up on these. And as well for postgraduate, sometimes the admission tests require higher requirements. So it is, linked to my last point, it's a lot more competitive than undergraduate applications. You have a lot smaller cohort is designated for postgraduate students. So really in your personal statement and your interview especially, you really have to stand out and show them why you deserve a place in medical school. In terms of the other application process, UCAT's the same. You still need references, you still need to go through UCAS, so all that remains the same. But I'd say for a postgraduate, really need to stand out in your personal statement and your interviews. So yeah, that's really all from me, and I just want to wish everyone good luck and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Abby, for your brief update on postgraduate entry route. And I'm sure you'll be happy for people to contact you for any queries later on. We next go on to our next speaker. Probably I might need half an hour to introduce a speaker, Dr. Jas Mataru, who is a dentist, a business leader, and an entrepreneur from Leeds. He has 30 years experience in setting up various dental practices towards the country. He has been a chief CEO for many independent and private dental clinics throughout the country. He's also recently a CEO for a private GP sector in Leeds. So if anyone is looking for a job, he's a person to go to. He also mentors A-level students, including dentists, over a year, and has successfully done so over the last few years. Not only that, he's also a CEO for a property development firm and has built numerous properties across the country. He's also a sitting magistrate on West Yorkshire Crown Court for the past 20 years. Today, he is going to talk to us and share his experience about interview techniques. Over to you, Jas.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the seminar. Thank you, Elo, for asking me to speak, and to the previous speakers for their excellent contributions so far. One thing that you're all going to require in the future is no doubt an understanding of how to approach an interview. And so I've been asked to give you a few pointers. It doesn't really matter what course you're applying for, whether it's medicine or dentistry or law. The secret to interviewing is the same, and I'm going to try to touch on some of the fundamental building blocks of this. One thing I've noticed over the years is that some very intelligent candidates interview quite poorly, and some very average students give a great interview. And so it's not just about what you know, but it's how you articulate what you know. And that is all in the preparation. And it's no different, the preparation that you did for your GCSEs, like you'll do for your A-levels, the preparation that's involved in UCAT, or whether you're sitting for a piano grading, we have to prepare, and interviews are no different. If you're considering medicine or dentistry, you'll have to become quite efficient with your time. For most of you, it's now going to feel that there's a juggernaut speeding towards you, and everything is going to happen quite quickly So it is important that we start to prepare early. Let me explain what I mean by efficient. I've got a question and I'll give you 10, 15 seconds to think about it. There's a particular time or date when 90% of us are all at our most efficient or at our peak efficiencies. Have a think about that. Do you think you know when that might be? When 90% of us are our most efficient? So some of you might have guessed it. It's actually the day before we go on holiday. And that's because we've created a mindset to clear our desks. So why can't we always be like that? Why can't we make every day that day before we go on holiday? So remember, preparing for medicine and dentistry, it's a bit of a marathon and not sprint. And so good planning is essential, and it should begin now and certainly by year 13, and then we can build on the pathway. So why do we do interviews? Be under no illusion, it's a very competitive discussion for universities to pick their very best students. You'll never go into any other competition without preparing, right? If you play netball or you play football, badminton, we all have to practice pre-season, and preparing for a university interview should be no different. Now, I've interviewed for nearly 30 years, so I'm going to give you a few pointers as to what I think the interviewer is looking for. It is evidence-based, and it is more of a generic overview and perhaps more related to retail, but it sort of gives you an insight into what the interviewer might be looking for. But it does involve another question. How long do you think it takes for the average interviewer to decide on a candidate? And let's say this was for a retail interview. How long do you think it takes on average for somebody to decide? A third of the interviewers, 33% of interviewers can decide in 90 seconds whether they're going to hire you or not. So you have to make those 90 seconds count. You won't get a second chance to make that first impression. And how that's broken down is 55% of it is the way you dress, the way you act, and the way you walk through the door if it's a panel type of interview. So it's very important that you present yourself well. 38%, funnily enough, is your voice, the grammar, the tonality, and the confidence with which you approach an interview, your swagger. But let's just talk a little bit about communication and how we can achieve the best result. I say to everyone, whenever you meet someone, make sure you leave them with a soundbite or a nugget of information about you that they can remember you by, that gets you noticed. I mean, I had a candidate many years ago who I was mentoring, and actually he was an ant breeder. He breeded ants. And how can I now forget that? I mean, this is 10 years on, and I think he's a third-year post-qualified dentist now. But certain things stick with you. So try to create a nugget of information that perhaps can make you stand out. And as I said earlier, your dress and appearance should be impeccable. Your voice tone, handshake used to be important, not so much now, even if it's a panel base as a result of post-COVID. But two things that are very, very important and will continue to require practice is one, body posture. Please, if you go for an interview, make sure your back is straight, sit up straight in your seats, no slouching. I think when you're slouching, you can give the interviewer a feeling that you're disengaged. And probably the most important thing, and my colleague alluded to it a little bit earlier, is eye contact. Try to maintain and keep looking at the interview for as long as you possibly can. It keeps you engaged. It's not an easy task, this, and it does require a lot of practice. So I can sum up the 4 points of communication. One is your body language. Maintain an air of self-confidence, eye contact. And if you can smile in the interview, it really does help. Your visual cues are going to be important. Make sure you look and you dress smartly. Your written word is very important. The personal statement must stand out and it must be personal to you. So give some good examples of why you have chosen a certain career. I mean, one very good example that stands out for me was a dental student who applied to do dentistry a couple of years ago, and actually his grandmother had just passed away with oral cancer, and that was very personal to him, and it just seemed right to introduce his personal statement with something like that. And obviously, number 4, the spoken word, you know, interviewing, your voice, your tonality and grammar are very, very important. One thing that I would say for an interview is arrive in good time, and sometimes expect the unexpected curved ball. I know it's not uncommon to get asked questions like, if you could invite anyone round for dinner, who would it be, why, and what sort of questions would you ask them? So always be prepared for a curveball. And so in summary, I would say, introduce yourself with authority, state your opinions with authority, be confident in what you say, and don't be afraid to share your thoughts. Remember, it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. So think about the intonation, think about your persuasive skills, and think about the body language and the eye contact. And the perfect interview actually is one where it feels like you've just had a chat. Try to take time to consider both sides of a scenario, and then start with the general outlook before you drill down into more detail with the answers. And one thing to remember, please concentrate and pay attention to the whole question that is asked. Sometimes questions can be in 2 parts, and it can be very easy to miss one part or the other. I'll leave you with one last soundbite. The retired head of the Supreme Court, Lord Neuberger, the most senior judge in this country and probably the greatest legal mind of our generation, famously said, "Just communicate in a language that people can understand." So please don't overthink, don't over-articulate, and the best advice I can give you is keep it simple, keep it clear. And on behalf of me and all the panel, the very best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess, and thanks for sharing your vast and huge experience, and thanks for spending your valuable time to come and speak to us. Thank you very much. We next go on to our next speaker, Aditya, who is a 4th-year medical student at the University of Nottingham. He is proud to be studying and working as a medical student in the same hospital where he was born. He researched about the various medical universities when he was applying for his medical school, and has helped many people strategically applying to the 4 choices, and quite a few have been successful in it. So over to you, Aditya, to talk about how to apply to universities strategically.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I just want to talk a little bit briefly about the application process. And in my opinion, one of the most fundamental aspects in the UCAT cycle, which is applying strategically. So by this point, in year 13, you should now have both your GCSEs, your UCAT, and on top of that, your predicted grades. And one thing that varies in terms of applying for medicine is that there's a vast amount of choices, but the most important thing that I like to stress, especially when talking to candidates individually, is that every medical school is brilliant in its own right, and there's only so much that rankings applies in medicine, because at the end of the day, you're all going to come out with the same degree. And I know it's understandable. Some people want to go to specific universities. Some people perhaps want to study in London. They want to study in certain universities. But I just want to reiterate the importance of applying based on the strengths within your application profile. And what I mean by that is every university has their own individual requirements. And it's really important that you sit down and note down what are your stats, and then comparing them to what the requirements of each university are. So some universities have a very high UCAT requirement. Others are more focused on GCSEs. As you'll know, there's also the BMAT, which people do sit for a few unis. Some of the London universities, Leeds as well, require the BMAT. So my main advice is to just choose 4 universities that you think you will get the best chance of getting an interview there. Because at the end of the day, it's all about probability. The more interviews you get, the greater chance you have of converting one of them into an offer. and eventually taking up your place at medical school. So just from the top of my head, some universities that have a UCAT requirement that may be slightly higher would be Newcastle, for example, Sheffield, Leicester. So these universities, particularly Sheffield and Leicester, have a very, very open admissions process. And what I mean by that is you can go onto their website and type in Sheffield Medicine entry requirements, for example. And on there, there'll be a clear list of what they are looking for in a candidate. And if you meet this certain cutoff, then you'll proceed to interview, given you have the right predicted grades and you have the right GCSEs. So I think it's really, really important. And it's something that's often overlooked, because I speak to loads of people on a day-to-day basis that have a slightly lower UCAT score and very good GCSEs. And likewise, there's people who have slightly lower GCSEs, but a very good UCAT. And often people end up applying to universities that aren't suited to their strengths. So my main advice is to choose 4 universities, like I said, where you'll have the best chance of getting the interview. So spend that time researching. It's one of the aspects of the application process that definitely people perhaps don't pay as much attention to as they can. But in my case, because I applied strategically, I knew even before I'd heard back from the unis whether or not I'd met their requirement. So it also alleviated some of my concerns about, will I get an interview here? Will I not? Because I sat down with my mom and we spent a lot of time deciding where's best for me. I was really set on going to Birmingham at one point. I really liked the university. Me and my mom visited the open day. And then we realized perhaps I should get an interview here, but it's a slightly riskier option. So what I did was I applied to the 4 unis that I would be happy to go to. And on top of that, the ones where my grades and my UCAT score was well matched to what their criteria was. Other universities have a slightly less clear and open admissions policy. So that is something to be wary of as well. Make sure that you're applying to universities where you know what they're looking for. So certain universities don't perhaps say this is exactly what we're looking for. So take advantage of that by going to open days, ask to speak to previous students, see how they did, how they got on. Another really useful tool is the Freedom of Information Act, which I'm not sure how many of you are aware of. So by law, universities need to release some information which isn't available openly on their website. Send them a Freedom of Information request, asking them in the previous cohort, what was the required UCAT score to go to interview? What was the average GCSEs of successful candidates? What's the interview to offer ratio? These are all really, really important things that can significantly increase your chance of being successful in the application. Even within my year at school, there were people who had incredible grades, incredible UCAT scores, but they didn't perhaps apply to what their strengths were and were left a bit disappointed with not receiving interviews from certain places. So like I mentioned, just to summarize again, my main piece of advice is be proactive now. I know the UCAS deadline this year is the 15th of October, or I'm not sure, it's around that time usually. But like I said, your school might have an internal deadline as well. So just make sure you're well researched before. So perhaps go for some safer options as well. If you think you're on the borderline, maybe spend a bit more time on them and go to open days and really be proactive. And I wish everyone the best in this year's cycle, and I'm sure you'll all do great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aditya, for your brief talk. I was actually told off by him a few weeks ago because I did post his number on the group to say that he can personally help people to choose their 4 choices. And within the evening, he was inundated with about 50 messages. But I'm sure he would like to help people, and we will continue the same. Okay, we now go on to our next speaker, Shruti. Shruti is a 4th-year medical student at University of Bristol and is a keen educator. She likes to teach, perhaps inspired by her both parents who are doctors. Especially her mom, Dr. Nirmala, is a very inspiring person and recently got an award at the Inspiring Indian Woman event in the British Parliament early this year. Shruti intercalated in endocrinology at Imperial College London last year. I understand she is also a keen runner. We all know the importance of exercise in physical and mental health. And I believe she recently completed a half marathon. Good luck for her to complete a marathon shortly. Over to you, Shruti, who is going to speak on UCAT.
Hi, hopefully you can see me now. So I'll get started. So I'm just going to cover a few things about UCAT. I did more of a more detailed bit about UCAT last time, but this time it's going to be a bit shorter, but it hopefully will cover the same things as last time. So moving on to the next slide. Sorry, has it moved to the next slide?
It should have, yeah, it has.
Okay. Okay, fine. I'll carry on. So just a little bit of an introduction to the UCAT. So it's called the University Clinical Aptitude Test, and it's the entrance exam that most UK medical schools ask as part of their medical school application process. I'll go on to which universities are included, and then there's 7 universities which require the BMAT as well, which will be the ones that I'm not covering today. So the UCAT is a multiple choice question exam, and it's done on the computer by students, and you book for it online through the Pearson VUE Test Centre. So there's some important admin information about the UCAT. So if you go to the next slide. So it's £70 fee to, so if you move on to the one after this, on the important admin info bit.
Can you see that?
Yes, yeah, perfect, thank you. So it's a £70 fee to sit the exam. I think you can get a bursary, so you can get it slightly cheaper if you apply for through the UCAT website, and it's 1 attempt per academic cycle. So if you're applying for next year's entry, so 2023 entry, you can only sit this exam once. And then if you're thinking of reapplying, then you'd have to resit it again for the next academic cycle. And then based on what you score, those you're then allocated interviews or offers later on after the interview. If you can move on to the next slide. So universities that require the UCAT are on the right. So as you can see, most of the universities in the UK require the UCAT as opposed to the BMAT. So most students who are considering applying for medicine tend to always take the UCAT. And then if they want to, they also take the BMAT in addition. So BMAT universities, just off the top of my head, are Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, Imperial, Lancaster, and one more, but which I can't seem to remember, but you can have a look online. But the rest of them use the UCAT instead. So it's a good bet to write the UCAT exam because it will cover most of the universities you're thinking of applying for. If we go on to the next slide. So looking at the sections of the UCAT, so we have 5 sections in total, which some of you may already know. So we have verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, and the final one, which is called situational judgment. So the first 4 on that table, they're all marked between 300 to 900. That's the score you can get for each individual section. So in total, you can score between 1,200 to a maximum of 3,600. And then the situational judgment is scored slightly differently. So you get banded, either band 1, 2, 3, or 4. Band 1 is the highest band that you can get, and band 4 is the lowest. So with verbal reasoning, what they're looking for is your ability to evaluate written information. I'll talk about each of the sections in a bit more depth later. And you cover 44 questions, and it's all done in 21 minutes, so approximately 28 seconds per question. Decision making is problem solving, so you get 29 questions in 32 minutes, so just over a minute to do all your questions. And then quantitative reasoning is evaluating numerical information, so things like basic GCSE level maths, so 36 questions in 25 minutes, so again 30 seconds per question. Abstract reasoning is assessing patterns, so you get a total of 55 questions to do in 14 minutes, so approximately 15 seconds per question. And then finally, situational judgment is 69 questions to do in 27 minutes, so just over 20 seconds per question. And then just to note that there's 1 minute reading time before you do each section, and what I advise people to do is before you start each section, take that minute to look away from the computer, because it's a 2-hour exam, and sometimes when you're panicking or when you're in a rush, you tend not to take that 1 minute break, which then could impact on the next section of your UCAT. So just use that 1 minute as a break for yourself. Going on to the next slide. Yeah, so the first section is verbal reasoning. So you get given a long passage and you have to answer 4 to 5 questions based on this passage. And the way it works is the questions could be giving you a statement, and then you have to decide whether that statement is true, false, or whether you can't tell based on what you've been given, or you could get single best answer. So you'll get 5 different answer options, and then you have to decide which one is the correct one. By looking at the passage. The main advice for this section is not to read through the entire passage, although that's what most people are tempted to do. Try and read the statement first, so the question, identify the keywords there, and then try and look for those keywords in the passage so you're not wasting too much time reading the entire text. If we move on to the next slide. Yeah, so decision making is about interpreting information and solving logic puzzles. A lot of students find this a bit more difficult compared to other sections because there's a variety of questions. So you can get things like syllogisms and logic puzzles, which they give you lots of chunks, lots of information, and you need to break it down into smaller chunks to figure out the answer to the question. Probability questions, so that it has a little bit of an overlap with maths. And then you also have interpreting data, so they can give you graphs or they can give you lots of numbers, and these can be healthcare related, or they can just be random graphs about stuff. And they ask you to interpret that data and decide whether the statements that they've given agree with the data or disagree with the data. And then you can also get arguments questions. So they'll give you a question, and then you have to choose the best argument out of 4 answer options to that question. And then lastly, they have Venn diagrams as well. So Venn diagrams is again something that people struggle with. So I'd advise going back over GCSE maths when you did cover Venn diagrams as well, because that's helpful for this section. Moving on to quantitative reasoning. So for this section, it's you're solving maths problems basically. And I think most students find this one easier compared to other sections because it's basically all the maths that you've been doing so far in school. And I always say to people, remember formula, because they're quite easy to remember and they help you save on time for other questions. So things like in physics, you remember your speed equals distance divided by time. So keeping that in your head will help you with questions where they ask about mileage or how far has a car traveled, etc. And then percentage changes, so percentage increase and decrease, they're very easy formulas to remember. And the same with areas and perimeters of common shapes, so circles, cylinders, and things like that. And then one of the conversions that they don't give you in the UCAT is 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers. So just remembering that in your head when you're doing conversions between miles and kilometers. Most other conversions, they do give it to you. So converting kilograms to pounds and things like that, they give you that information, but just sort of going back over how to do conversions and how to deal with different units is helpful as well. Moving on to abstract reasoning. So abstract reasoning, most people complain that there's not enough time to do this section. So as I said before, we've got 15 seconds per question. So people find it really hard to identify a pattern with these questions. But the one method you can use is the scans method, which some of you may have heard about. So whenever you're looking at a set of patterns that they've given you, try and identify whether the pattern is shape or size of the shapes that have been given. Is it color? Is it arrangement? Or is it angles? Is it number? Or is it shading? So by going through that step by step in a process, that then helps you rule out what the pattern could be or identify which pattern is correct. The other thing when you're practicing abstract reasoning questions is if you find that a pattern keeps coming up in your questions, write it down in a notebook, and then that way it also helps you to identify those patterns next time faster than you normally would. So that's how you can get good with abstract reasoning. Then finally, situational judgment. So situational judgment, I found it quite easy. So it's a mixed bag. So some people really like it. Some people find it a bit more difficult. So you get given medical scenarios or university-based scenarios, and you have to evaluate whether that response is appropriate or inappropriate, or whether the factor that needs to be considered is important or unimportant. And it's a lot of medical ethics that comes into situational judgment. So they will ask, for example, they can ask you stuff like, one of the medical students has stolen something from a ward. How appropriate is it for them to respond in a certain way? And then they'll give you 4 different responses, and then you have to decide whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. So they give you different medical scenarios, and that's just to test if you know what the GMC guidance to a good doctor is. So there's a document online called GMC Guidance to Good Medical Practice. I would advise, if you're taking the UCAT, just to read over that document, because it helps you a lot in how to answer these situational judgment questions and helps you get band 1 or band 2, which are the higher bands. But yeah, that was my last slide. So thank you, everyone. And good luck for everything as well.
Thank you, Shruti. That was a whistle-stop tour of the whole UCAT process, which is a big topic in itself. We realize that the importance of UCAT, and in fact, we did a recent survey, and people have been preparing it for a few weeks. But we think probably a gradual, slow preparation over a longer time would be helpful, because the UCAT score is as important as your A-level result. So we plan to do a monthly UCAT training for year 12 students. So more details in the group. And today's recording will also be available on YouTube. People like Shruti are willing to help people to coach in their private time. And other students are also can do it for a small fee. The details will be available on our website, www.educatetheworld.co.uk. We are on time. We initially planned to finish by 5 o'clock, but we might go over, but definitely we'll finish by 5:15. Okay. So we next go on to our next speaker, Abhishek. Abhi is one of our what do you call a favorite or a very sought after teacher in our course. He's he's from Halifax, and currently he is a 3rd year medical student at Plymouth. He has successfully coached numerous students over the last few years, and he will be talking to us about the application process. Over to you, Abhi.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Abhi, and I am currently a 3rd year medical student at the University of Plymouth. It's actually a privilege to speak here today alongside some of the speakers who actually did my mock interview. So a few years ago, I was in the same position where all of you are, and I was quite overwhelmed. I didn't really know what to expect from this medical application process. But what I learned is that there are a few components to it, such as you have to do the UCAT or BMAT, you need to write your personal statement, then you have the interviews, and then there is getting the grades. So when you're writing the personal statement, and I've read a few in the last couple of weeks, make sure you reflect. Don't just write a bullet point list about everything you've done, but write what it means to you, why it's important, and why does that make you want to be a doctor? Reflection is key. If you are in year 13, you should be thinking about what university suits you. Lots of people ask me, what's the best university in the UK? And I just tell them the best university in the UK is the one which suits your portfolio, the one where you want to go. Every student has a university which is well suited to them. Don't just go off the rankings, but go off what will increase your chances to get into that uni. So make sure it suits the criteria. So as it has been mentioned before, strategic application is key. If you are in year 12, please think about volunteering and extracurricular activities, as this will help you in your interview stage, because you'll be able to reflect on your experiences and all the skills you've learned. I can't emphasize how important it is to engage with as many different volunteering activities and extracurricular activities as possible. I'm not going to say applying to medicine is easy. However, if you compartmentalize your journey, and have short-term goals, you can do it. So make sure you stay positive and have belief in yourself, and you will get through this. Remember, you will be successful because everyone has strengths in the medical application journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhi. It's really good to see people like you, Megan, who came as a student, doing the practice and coming back and teach successfully. Not only that, you and Megan have even written a chapter in the book. Very proud of your achievement. And I hope to see many other students, who are doing this year to come back and be successful. We go on to our next speaker, Megan. Megan is a third-year medical student at Cambridge. She will be talking about BMAT and the general applying process. She's been recently awarded a foundation scholarship after receiving a first class in her course. Well done, Megan, and over to you.
Thank you. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Please let me know if you can't see it. So I'm going to be talking about Oxbridge applications. So firstly, why Oxbridge? Why choose Oxbridge over any other medical university? So the main difference for me and what kind of drew me particularly to applying to Cambridge specifically initially is the very different learning style that they have there. So it's kind of, whereas other universities are much more integrated with their learning approach with kind of more PBL and more patient-led focus, Oxbridge is kind of a much more traditional course. So if your parents are doctors, it's probably more along the lines of the way they studied, with kind of set preclinical years where you start with the basic science before moving on to being able to apply this science in kind of the clinical settings in later years. So this was a major pull factor for me because I wanted to kind of get the scientific basis down first before moving on to applying it to patient focused teaching. So if you're kind of more academic and more into the science side of things, it's definitely a big reason to apply there. A second reason is the kind of research opportunities. So a lot of our lecturers are kind of world-class scientists in their own fields. So the first lecture I ever had was by somebody with an MBE for research in their field. And as you move further into your course, and particularly in the intercalated years, there's the opportunity to have these people as your kind of supervisors for your projects. And if you go on to do PhDs, so obviously this kind of opens the door to research opportunities that wouldn't necessarily be available at other universities. The BMAT. So I think a lot of people have spoken about the UCAT, but Oxbridge uses the BMAT as their kind of entrance exam, which some other universities also do, like Leeds. But it's a very different style of examination to the UCAT. So if your strengths lie in the BMAT and you think you might actually do better in the BMAT, then that's kind of a big reason to apply there, further on from the strategic applications that were discussed earlier. It's also just it's a historical university and a historical city and a beautiful place, and a chance to kind of be part of that and be part of that history is also a big pull factor for a lot of people. So what is different about the Oxbridge application? So as I've mentioned, it uses the BMAT instead of UCAT. So the BMAT has 3 sections. Section 1 is kind of based around critical thinking and English language. So it's got English passages, argument passages, with a couple of maths questions kind of dotted in there. Then section 2 is all about science, and it's based very much on your GCSE science, but it's important to remember that it draws from all of the exam boards, not just necessarily the one that you did. And then section 3 is a very short essay from a list of 3 that they have given you. The second thing that's different is the interview style. So I know that people have talked a lot about MMIs today. but Oxbridge uses a kind of a more panel style interview, and it's much more scientifically based. So for example, in my interview, we were looking at histology slides and graphs and experiments and kind of discussing the science behind these, but also how they link to clinical practice. Different entry requirements. So for example, I know that Cambridge doesn't necessarily ask for biology, and kind of prioritizes maths perhaps more than other universities. So that's definitely something to look at and consider when applying. And the final thing that's different is that you apply to a college rather than the university itself. So it can be important to choose a college strategically, as some of them sometimes have different entrance criteria. So some of them really prioritize, getting an A star in chemistry, whereas some of them might prioritize the BMAT more. But ultimately choosing a college that you like is probably the most important part. So about the BMAT and the interview, I know that lots of the other medical students have offered their help with like tutoring. I'd be happy to help anyone with kind of the BMAT or the more panel style interviews, because I know that not necessarily everyone is as kind of educated about that, and it might be a bit more kind of difficult to find in mock interviews with that style potentially. Can I move it on to the last slide? How to maximize your chances. So research, definitely research around the college, around the course. And so you know what you're talking about interview, and you come across like you want to be there and that you've applied for the right reasons. Supracurriculars. So these are slightly different to extracurriculars. So your extracurriculars might be like sports and music. Supracurriculars kind of fall more along the lines of sort of what an EPQ might be like. So you might have done an additional research project, or submitted a poster, or entered an essay competition or something like that. BMAT revision. So I've had questions from a couple of you on the chat, or have messaged me privately about how best to revise for BMAT. I know that there are some kind of websites available, but personally the best thing I found was just doing the past papers on the website and then marking them, and kind of making sure that when I marked them, I definitely looked at exactly what I'd got wrong and why, because I found that the pattern of questions tended to be quite repetitive, particularly in section 1. For section 3, the essays, which I think are probably the hardest section to revise for, I had people that were willing to mark essays for me and kind of give me feedback. So if you can't find anyone, any teachers, for example, that are able to do that, I am more than happy to look at any essays that anyone has completed. And lastly, interview practice. So as I mentioned, the interview style is kind of a bit different, a bit more scientific than perhaps the other universities, less kind of MMI based. So definitely practice that style of interview, and make sure that you maybe practice not just necessarily being one-on-one, but facing a panel of 2 to 3 interviewers, because that could potentially be more intimidating. I think that's all I have to say. My contact details are in the bottom left corner if anyone wants to ask any more questions, either today or at any point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Megan. All the slides would be available on the website if you want to refer to. And thanks for volunteering to help people despite your busy research studies at Cambridge. Okay, we only have half an hour left, so please bear with us. We next go on to our next speaker, Abhimanyu. Some of the students do study abroad and come to study in UK. Abhi studied in Dubai, and I was informed, he scored probably the top 1% in the world on his UCAT score, more than 3,000, I think his score was. He's going to talk about the challenges and difficulties when applying from abroad. Over to you, Abhi, who is a medical student in Nottingham.
Hey everyone, my name's Abhi, and like Dr. Anand said, I'm a 4th year in Nottingham. So I did study in Dubai, so I'm an international student, so I'm going to speak a little bit more about the international perspective. One of the main things is really, unfortunately, you just do have to work a lot harder. The reason is because where medical school might have 300 places, about 30 of those might be international seats. So this obviously applies to everyone. Work as hard as you can, but when the competition is a lot higher because of the seats, you just have to put that little extra effort in. The next thing also kind of goes to the last point goes into this point, which is basically choose your medical schools that have more international seats. So some of them will have 10 or 20 international seats versus some will have like 30 or 40. So if you feel your application is not very strong, try to apply to medical schools that do have more seats, and obviously that will make things a little bit easier for you. And I have one thing that I did personally to try to improve my application, and this is something that everyone can do, is do online courses. So you have things like EDX and Coursera. The Harvard Medical School does online courses as well. You get courses on different things. So I did a couple of courses on cancer because I thought that was quite interesting. So doing that makes your application a lot stronger and makes you stand out a little bit. So obviously this is something you can do even if you're from the UK, but if you're international, I would definitely suggest doing that. And another thing I wanted to say was, if you're international, be ready to have to travel to the UK for your interviews. So I had to travel twice because I did 2 interviews in the first time and then 2 interviews a month later. So I had to travel twice. Some people have to travel 4 times, depending on how many interviews you get. So, but you should be ready to have to travel. Some universities will accommodate an online interview, but some won't. So that's also something that you can take into consideration when you're applying. And like it's been said before, everyone can get into medical school. I'm not extremely intelligent by any means. I just really put in the effort when I was in school. And that's what you have to do. Just keep your chin up, try to do as much work as you possibly can, and hopefully it'll work out. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhi. Thank you for spending your time, especially on a bank holiday weekend, to talk to everyone. We go on to our next speaker, Dr. Raji Anand. We all know the role and importance of parents, especially during those important GCSEs and the A levels. And I'm sure many of the parents who are listening, would be doing the same, anxious about what's going to happen, and also try to do the best for the child in the important year. Raji is a GP partner and a trainer. She's interested in teaching, perhaps motivated by her parents, who are both retired college professors. She also teaches qualified doctors who want to become a general practitioner. Over to you, Raji, who's going to talk on the role of parents.
Hello, good evening to you all. I think my talk today is more relevant to the parents who are attending here. And clearly being here, supporting your child, I think is the best step that you are helping with them in this process. Because for 17-year-olds, this is the single most daunting step that they have ever taken in their life so far. And it can be highly challenging as well. You've heard the previous speakers talk about the scale of competition they are likely to face. And it not only is challenging, it is highly grueling. And I can very well empathize with that as a mom who's been there, done that as well. And Aditya, who was sharing his experience as well, was talking about his mom sitting in there and doing the homework. And I can clearly relate to that, because as a parent, you want to be there supporting your child through this process, which is not only challenging, but also there is so many varied pathways, and the ways and means of achieving that final goal is multitude. So it's about being aware of it. As they say, knowledge is power. So make sure you are there with them, helping them, supporting them. And this step that you have taken today is, I would say, the first step forward. So if you look at it, it is like running a marathon, as very aptly said by Jazz as well, because not only does it involve diligent homework, but also it involves assimilating all the relevant information and being prepared for it. So I would say the step actually starts from your GCSE years. Make sure they are having, for their subjects, relevant tutors if they need, because tutoring at the end of the day is not just about gaining knowledge, because when you look at exams, it's about gaining the results, achieving the grades that they need, which sets them really apart from their peers, where they can stand out. So tutoring, I would say, is a very, this is a commonly asked question. So this is where I would say the first step process starts with. Make sure whichever subjects that they find are not their cup of tea. Because in GCSE level, they've got around 10 subjects that you choose from. not every one of them will be your strength. So if there are subjects which they are already struggling, make sure that you get the tutor in time as well, so that they can get the right grades. And moving forward, I would say AS is a very important preparatory stage in their journey towards attaining the final goal, because during AS time, they have ample time to not only rest, but also get all their extracurricular activities done well ahead in time. Please consider this as a kind of a timeline where you are accumulating all the necessary armaments when you actually are kind of ready for your personal statement. So get in there, get in all the relevant extracurricular activities that you can. It could be Duke of Edinburgh, it could be anywhere in the healthcare setting, it could be any volunteering that you do, even a job, because a job that you can hold shows that you've got responsibilities, you are committed to it. How do you kind of have that you can show that you have good communication skills? So anything and everything that you can get under your belt, because AS is the time to do that. And several universities also appreciate extended project and thereby an EPQ as well. I think it's a very good time in AS to ensure that you get all that done, and as well as gradually getting information about the open days. Because as a parent, I think one of the things that you can really help them is do the research, because each university have their own requisites. There are so much information there, untapped, I would say, because unless you go out looking for that, it's not going to be available to you. So you can sit in with your child, make sure you make a kind of almost a tabular column of the universities, with whether there are so many aspects that you would be needing to look at. You'd be surprised that each university have their own requisites. Though the process, say for example, might be getting into it might be a UCAT or a BMAT, but individual universities have their own requisites. So being aware again is very important when you put in your application. Once you've done, because we've had several speakers talk about UCAT and BMAT, so I'm not going to be repeating that. Then comes the personal statement. Again, as parents, you can help them a lot in getting their personal statement right. Make sure that you help them with the reflections. It's not about what you do, but how you reflect on them. This is a process even now as a GP registrars who come in, reflection is very much a part of your medical career. And so I want children, bright students who are able to reflect on their experiences and are able to kind of say what they gained out of it, what they learned from it. So along personal statements, send it to as many as people who have already done it, children who have already been successful, or if you have friends who are in the medical career, ask them to look at it and give them a feedback so that the personal statement can stand out. Everybody does the same, but how you kind of reflect on it. It is about trying to sell yourself and make sure whatever you've done, you're able to sell yourself. And the parents have a very important role in that. The next step in the process, I would say, is attending all the open days. Now that you might have kind of looked into all the requisites from looking at the websites, go in person, see whether this is the right fit for your child, see whether this university, the style of teaching, because it could be either a traditional kind of mode of teaching, as Megan was saying, or it could be in Nottingham, where it is kind of more of a interactive. They start from day one, they start with the clinical kind of tutoring. So it depends what would suit your child. So thereby give them that exposure, take them as much as possible to all these open days. And when it comes to A level, thereby they are actually, when they come to the personal statement, then comes the interview process. And then the timeline actually starts going more, the clock starts ticking and ticking fast actually at this point. So I would say the interviews again are another next step hurdle, but it is easily made feasible because of if there is preparation. So make sure that, again, if you have friends who are, if you're doctors, well and good, but even if not, make sure that you have tutoring, make sure that they attend courses, because courses can be invaluable to give them the information that they need, which they will make them stand apart in their interviews. And amongst all this, I would say the most important step is, as a parent, is being their friend, because I cannot emphasize enough how much of a challenging process this is. And to imagine for a 17-year-old, the sheer pressure of kind of the competition that they are facing, the expectations on them is huge. And you can be their support system. You can be their friend. There will be days when they are frustrated. They feel that it's too much of a burden. Thereby share their burden, be their friend, let them talk to you. You have to be their sounding board. If they have difficult days, that's fine. If we cannot all keep plodding on. So make sure they get good nutrition, make sure they get adequate breaks, because I can't emphasize enough from a doctor as well as a mom who's been through, you can only work so well when you are not stressed about the whole process. So you need to be de-stressing, make sure they get adequate breaks, take them out on a walk, take them out for a dinner. Little treats go a long way. Give a pat on the back, be there for them, make sure they sleep well. Good sleep is so essential. And I would say as youngsters, they try to push themselves, and it is so important that they don't burn out. Burning out should be the one thing that you should avoid, because it's so important that they would, with this marathon, you need to kind of, until you go to the finish line, make sure that it's a slow, steady, gradual process, and right through this, create a conducive environment. All I would say is all the children here are bright. They will be able to get it. It's no doubt about it, but be the positive influence, be their support system. And well done to the parents and the children who are here. Good luck to you all. I'm sure you'll all ace it. Best wishes.
Okay, thank you, Raji. You must be one of the tiger moms, I suppose. We next go on to our final speaker, Dr. Rupa Jairaj, who is a consultant anesthetist at the University Hospital of Leicester. She's also a Royal College tutor and has been an examiner for the Leicester Medical School over the last 5 years. She's very helpful and charitable in nature, and helps with charity activities in and around Leicester. So she's going to talk on what to do if your child misses the offer and the grade. Over to you, Rupa.
Thank you, Elil. All of you will be happy to note that I'm the last speaker. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the homework I did, as Raji said, with my son, who's in 4th year Birmingham. Thankfully, he got it in the first place, but life can be tough. And so if you don't get the grades or offers, what should you do? So as Aditya said, strategic applying is very, very important. The medical schools, all the medical schools in the UK are GMC accredited. And so whichever school suits you is the best school for you. So here in a few minutes, I'll be touching about all this in this slide. So clearing the gap year, retaking A-levels or remarking. Obviously, you have to take the UCAT if you miss that year, studying abroad, and biomedical sciences and transfer to medicine. So as many people have said, it is a long year, okay? So the timeline from the end of year 12 up to end of year 13 is a long year for parents as well as obviously the students. So you start off with the predicted grades, then you write your personal statement during the summer and beginning of September now. Then you've got your UCAT BMAT exams. You've got your UCAS applications usually mid of October. Then the interview offers. Then you have to once you get the offer, you do the interview. So once the interviews, if you're lucky, you get an offer. If you're not, you get a rejection. And then finally, the A-level exams. As a mother, I just felt this medical schools council website to be very good, authentic. It's a government website. From here, if you click entry requirements, you can see everything you need to know. So I would say students and parents do the homework. Obviously the students who are going to take the medicine have to do it, but I think parents also have to help them. So do your research. There are 40 medical schools in the UK. And as I said in the previous slide, you have to do it strategically. And there are 40 medical schools in the UK. Most of them, as you say, everything is good. Okay. Just go to the previous slide. Sorry, I just want to go back to my previous slide. Previous slide, Daniel.
This is the previous.
No, the first one. Go back to the previous slide. Sorry about that. So strategic applying is really, really important. Please don't, as Aditya said, don't think just about the levels, or, there are lots of websites which say, Imperial College is the best. I'm just giving examples, sorry. Or the 10th best is Birmingham, or whatever. It is what suits you. I can't stress this enough. So as parents, do help your children to take the right schools, universities when you apply. Okay. The second one is clearing. This is what you do when you don't get in. Okay, so your predicted grades are there. You've done everything, and you don't get in with the with your A-level grades. So what do you do with clearing? Okay, clearing is something you have to do the day before you get your A-level results. Okay, go into every university you've taken, as well as most of the universities I've mentioned. Go through it and have a record of what are the universities you're going to ring up first thing in the morning. Okay, it's usually a first come, first served basis. You need to have all the universities' phone numbers. There's a clearing hotline which starts at around 6:30. I know Leicester started last year at 6:30 in the morning. And there are some schools who give your A-level scores even before that. So it really depends on your school. Some schools actually help you with the clearing phone line. The teachers themselves help you. Otherwise, you'll have to do it with your parents. Okay. Traditionally, there are some universities which do the clearing much more than other universities. So, do your research again, go into every website, things like even there's medical chat rooms, go and find out about which universities do clearing more. So usually, traditionally, St. George's University, Central Lancaster University, Hull, University of Leeds, actually, I was surprised, Plymouth, Anglia Ruskin, Sunderland, some of the newer universities do the clearing more. And again, with clearing, this is what I've heard from speaking to so many people. It's actually is what you say to them on the phone. There are admissions tutors and many people on the other line or other end of the phone, and they are the ones you have to just tell them. I'm from Leicester, so I'm using Leicester as an example. So if you are from a nearby place, you say, okay, Leicester is a multicultural place. I really want to do uni there. At the same time, your father or your mother or your brother might be on another phone call talking to another university. Ultimately, you as the student have to pick up that phone and talk to them. But it's just worth noting that clearing is kind of luck. And so I wouldn't say fully luck, but you have to do the research to go into the correct university to ring up first thing in the morning. And there are many people who have got through clearing. But if you do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, after your A-level results, most of the seats are gone. Interview offers, as I said previously, strategic planning, try and get the interview offer. Otherwise, it can be very difficult without an interview offer to study for A-level. Okay, so what to do if you don't get in? So there are things like the gap year. You can, if you've got good A-level results, you've got your grades, you can work as something in the NHS, in the health industry, you can travel. And then obviously you have to do the UCAT again for that year. Okay, there are people obviously have an offer, but they don't have the grades. In that case, they have to do the A-levels again. Some of them repeat the whole year in school or repeat certain subjects alone. Where, irrespective of whether you have the A-level grades or not, you have to, the UCAT has to be repeated every year, okay? Then there's always the chance of studying abroad. People did touch upon it. You can again do the research, European universities, Asian universities, you can do your medicine abroad. Again, on the day of the A-level, your teachers would help you. If you want emergency marking and remarking, you'll have to think about it. So give some thought into all of this, okay? And then the final thing I would like to see is your biomedical sciences. But again, like your graduate entry, this is quite difficult because 1 or 2 people can transfer to medicine in the next year. So Leicester has that opportunity. There are some universities which give you this opportunity, not all universities, but as you say, I think you have to be the first in class to transfer to medicine. So you actually do 1 year of biomedical sciences and then you transfer into medicine. As all the previous speakers have said, you know, there are 40 medical schools in the UK. All of them are equally good. If you have the passion for medicine and if you really want to do medicine, you will get in. You know, as Dr. Raguraman said, it's a lovely profession. You know, you are helping others. You get a lot of job satisfaction. So if you really want to do medicine, you know, most of them will get it the same year. There are some people who get it the next year and even the year after or after graduate entry. It's how passionate you are, how much work you would like to do for that year. And finally, I would just like to say, because of what the timeline is, you just have to be consistent. Have your breaks, you know, have a little bit of relaxation, but be consistent throughout this year. And good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupa. You rightly said about the clearing process. We did have a few anxious parents recently talking about the clearing and probably needed a bit of help. Our next training, we are actually doing a one-to-one in a smaller group, MMI training on the November 6th, and I will post the forms in the group for you to register. Just before we finish off, we wanted to again reiterate the motto of our group, you know, why so many volunteers have come to spend their time and do this talk, is that we believe that we can spread positivity by being grateful for whatever we have. And also, we always believe that the greatest happiness is the service to others. Before we go on to our question and answers in the chat box, I would like to ask Priya, our admin, to come and say a few words and thank the speakers.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Priya. I also go by Skillet. I am the admin for Educate the World initiative. I would like to thank all the speakers, including senior doctors, for volunteering their time on a weekend to come to talk to us. Thanks to all the students and parents who joined the event today. I hope you found it useful. We will upload the event onto our YouTube channel by 10 p.m. tonight. I again apologize for the technical difficulties we experienced with the live stream. If you want more details, you can find them on our website, www.educatetheworld.co.uk. For any clarification, please don't hesitate to contact me on 07958913329. We will see you at the next event, which will be the MMI mock interview, as Dr. Anand said, which will be Sunday, November 6th. I'm just going to share the poster for that. So this is our poster. I think you can all see that for our next event for the MMI mock interview. We have one on November 6th and another one in January 22nd. Yeah, and we will see you then. Thank you.